And I'm back with some keywords and concepts. Get your flashcards ready to go. All right, so just straight up vocabulary words that we need to understand from this chapter. First one's up. We have sect. A sect is a small new offshoot of a denomination. This is something we should be fairly familiar with here in the US of A. Uh, how many variations of Presbyterian have you seen? Methodist, Baptist, right? Lots. Those are all sects. Those are all sects. It doesn't matter what variety, they're all sects. Moving on, we have polytheism. This is a religion that's based on the belief of multiple deities. Americans tend to be more familiar with monotheism. That's the belief in a single God. This is when people believe in more than one God. We then move on to liberation theology, which is kind of interesting. Kind of melding of religion and politics. This is where people use a church to promote social change via the political arena. So probably the best example of this would be in the 50s. There were a lot of Catholics, Jews, and more liberal Protestants who were very involved in the civil rights movement, right? They didn't think that Jesus would want people to be treated that way. They didn't think Jesus would approve of Jim Crow, because he probably wouldn't have. I can't imagine how he would, especially since he wouldn't have been allowed to drink those water fountains. That would have been a problem. So, liberation theology is something Dr. King used. Okay, so if you know so that's kind of the best example, but there are still people doing it. Modern example would be Reverend William Barber, the Poor People's Campaign. He's amazing, kind of picking up the work Dr. King left off, and really believing, taking the word of the Bible and kind of taking that extra step with it, right? And saying, well, okay, cool, that's what the Bible says, let's make it happen. So that's liberation theology. Next word is megachurch. So that's a Christian church that has a very large congregation, like very large, averaging more than 2,000 people who attend regular weekly services, right? These are all over the place here in the US, right? We have tons of them. Canada has some. But the strangest place they're becoming popular is in South Korea. They've had quite the growth of megachurches, very similar to our own. In South Korea. So that's a thing you should be aware of. And then we have two Jewish phrases here that you are going to need to know the difference between. So the first one is the Talmud. The Talmud records Jewish interpretations of their sacred text, right? So these were originally verbal interpretations, and this document, it's actually sets of documents, it's many documents. This is kind of where they start to develop Jewish law. So basically, the Talmud is a collection of writings on the Torah, on their holy book, by learned people. So by rabbis, they're kind of quote unquote lawyers that are rabbis, that kind of thing. It's where they're discussing it. It's where they're trying to figure out how this applies to life. Whereas the Torah is their sacred text. So that would be their Bible, right? Which coincidentally is the Bible. It's the first 5 books of the Christian Bible. So isn't that convenient to remember? So, just make sure you can tell the difference between those. Talmud's an interpretation, so it's like extra, whereas the Torah is the actual work. So think, if you're a Christian person, the best way to remember this would be, the whole Holy Bible is the sacred text, and then like the Apocrypha would be something extra, right? That would be additional. But the Torah would be the Bible for that religion. And then finally, we have technological innovation and religion. So the ability to mass produce religious texts really influenced religion. Technology really influenced religion in this way because it led people to pursue their own interpretations of religion. It really expanded literacy and the ability of people to read and to own books. And for the first time, you had people saying, well, I can read the Bible myself and make my own interpretations. Why am I listening to those priests? There would not be a Martin Luther without the printing press, right? You do need that technology in order to make that work. So this is some place where Freud and Marx were a little wrong with the modernization, tamping down on religion, because in this particular instance, and you could make a similar argument with the internet, it really led to a flourishing of more religions, more religious interpretations, that kind of thing. All right, I'll be back with information on actual religions coming up soon.